Yo, what is good, guys? Welcome back to another video. This video, we're going to be getting you guys ready for the week. It's going to be a great week for the stock market. Last week, we seen some relief with the tariffs and seen a little bit of an upward trend, thus making us kind of positive for the week, but not really. But in certain stocks, we were pretty positive, like Microsoft, Meta, Google, Apple, Nvidia. Not like we seen like a couple weeks ago when, Apple was up like 15-20% for the week. Nvidia was up like 10-15% for the week. But we did do pretty good. We did make a little bit of a rebound, and we kind of did go above these highs. But honestly, I think we might need to break that 565 all the way up to that 580 level to see some more bullish momentum and maybe even go up to the highs. Speaking of the all-time highs, we did see Palantir kind of almost, not really almost, but kind of getting back to those highs that we kind of seen previously, that 125.4, and we're like we're literally like 15 bucks away from that. So you might see Palantir kind of reach its highs, maybe make a bounce off and or break above that. Palantir is on my radar for this week for some short-term trades. I dig into some long-term trades a while back, and I kind of try to point that out to you guys. But with that being said, let's get into some news and things to look for next week. One, just understand that relief, and there is some meetings next week that can move the market a decent amount with the trade wars. With that being said, I did make a video 24 minutes long, kind of explain this a little bit more. So if you guys want a more in-depth video for next week, check this one out. This one is kind of like a quicker one. But to start, we do have some of the earnings. Let me zoom out a little bit. I don't know why I was so zoomed in. But earnings for next week, before open, look at Domino's Pizza and some other stocks. We got some banks. And then after close, there's not really anything major. But for Tuesday, we have PayPal, UPS, especially if you have some long-term UPS, Coca-Cola, Pfizer, Spotify is reporting their earnings before open. After close, we got Visa, Starbucks, and some other ones. And some major ones, we got Meta, Microsoft. These two are key stocks. Robinhood too, because you can see Robinhood move a lot, especially with what they're doing. They got sports betting, and they're just adding way more to their platform. This is kind of like the investing platform for Gen Z to say, a lot of younger traders is there. But as time progresses, you're probably going to see more money flow into Robinhood, especially with what they're doing. But I know a lot of older people using Robinhood too. But literally everybody that just invests for fun uses Robinhood. So Robinhood might report some great earnings. Thursday, we got Roblox. We have Apple. Apple, I'm pumped up for. Apple is one of my short term trades that I like doing, especially swing trades with Apple. They're pretty cheap options. Amazon is decent too. We got some decent news with it, and Amazon is just a great stock. Everybody uses Amazon. ExxonMobil on Friday, and you got the oil prices going down, especially with the times that we're in right now. But for the calendar, this should refresh automatically. There we go. Monday, we have nothing really major. Tuesday, we got trade balances and goods, retail inventories, some other things too. We got consumer confidence and job openings might move the market too, and that's 30 minutes after market open. Wednesday, ADP, GDP, we got employment cost index and some PCE data. Thursday, we got initial jobless claims, ISM, S&P final, PMI, auto sales, construction spending, and then Friday, non-farm payrolls, unemployment rate, hourly wages, and some other ones. You guys can screenshot this list. I personally just look up stock calendar and I use Market Watch, but you can use other ones too. And then for the earnings for next week, I recommend screenshotting. It's a little bit harder to find, but just look up the date of Monday. So it'll be April 28th. Earnings, literally 2025, if you want to get more in depth with it. But let's look at some price range and just where stocks are potentially going. So first, we're going to start off with the SPY. Let's get into the 5 minute to kind of zoom in a little bit more at some price targets. I deleted all mine for a screenshot, but really, all you really have to look for is if it holds that 550 level, look above at the 553, 554.5, 556.5, and that 560 to the upside. These levels, especially if you're short-term trading, they can have a bounce off of them. So understand that. Understand your price level, supports and resistance. To the downside, I will look at that 550 level first, 549.5, that 549 flat, that 546, 543.5, and then all the way down to that 540 level, and then down 538, 537, and then 535, and then the lows of 531.10. For Apple, especially with earnings, you're probably going to see a little bit more volatile, but look at it to the upside first. 209.5, 210 is going to be key. We did have a little bit of a bounce off of it. 211, 211.5, 212.8, and then that 215 level to the downside. Really that the 207.5, that 206.5, 205 and that 200 level to the downside. Especially if earnings is good or bad, you might see it bounce up to that 215 to that 220. And or if we bounce and it's like bad earnings basically, and we might get some bad earnings, especially if they start talking about tariffs a little bit more. You might see it all the way down to that 200 range, maybe even 195, and then maybe even 190. But really, if we get some bad earnings, you might see it kind of go up to that 210 to that 212 maybe before earnings, and then maybe bounce all the way down to that 200 to 195 level, and or you might just bounce around that 212 to that 200 range until earnings, and then you might get a big break up or big breakdown. Nvidia is moving pretty strongly. Look at that 115, 116, 120, and then 122, and then 125, and then to the downside, I'll be looking at that 110, how it really reacts to that 110, because if we break below that, you might get 108, 106.5, 105, and then 100 level. That 100 level is key, especially if you buy a swing trade, option play below that $100 level. It should hit because countless times, like I said in the last video, we get below that $100 level and then it bounces above it instantly. But I'm not saying like once it breaks below 100, get your call option. No, but once it breaks below 100, just watch it for a while. And then lower we get, the more money you'll make, of course. But I'm not saying it's going to bounce above that 100 instantly, like we've been seeing, like kind of like the next day. But you might have a potential to do a swing trade. And don't put all of your money into it, honestly. Just put money that you're willing to lose. For Palantir, I'm very, very pumped. I got myself a long term call at around that 107 level. So, I mean, either way, it's still making money. But I'm looking at that 115, 120, 125, and then just look at the highs, honestly. And if we break above that, we might even get 130 with Palantir, especially if the momentum keeps building up and then a lot of people keep buying it. To the downside, look at that 107.5, 105, 100, and then 95. But it's really moving with NVIDIA, but NVIDIA has like 2.7 trillion market cap. And then Palantir, what is it, like 200 billion? 264 billion market cap. So it's not worth the same, but it's the same price range, So just keep that in mind. But Palantir, man, people are saying long term, like the price targets, it's like 150, 200, $300. And I mean, it's a great stock to look at and have as your long term. Tesla, 290, 300, and then 310 to that 320. We've been getting a lot of hype. They say that Elon Musk is going to be taking not time away from Doge, but taking basically the time that he's putting into Doge. He's going to have less time in a Doge and put it more into Tesla. And that's what investors love to hear. So it's been going up. The earnings was pretty bad, but I mean, that kind of brought the stock back up. But we kind of got news like this before. And honestly, he kind of denied it after a while. And then the stock started dipping again. So keep that in mind, because if we get some bad news like that, you see it come down a bunch, maybe even 10, 20, 30, $40. So if you're in on that news, you guys can make a bunch of money because it's going to fall like for like 2 or 3 days consistently, like maybe $10 to $20 moves. And then after that, it's probably just going to consolidate and maybe move back up or something. So if we do get some news like that, like Elon Musk isn't really taking that much time away from Doge, you're probably going to see the stock fall again. But some levels to look at, we are going to the upside. So look at that 290, 300. 300 is going to be key and 290 is going to be key. And to the downside, 280, 275, 270, and that 265 level for Tesla. But honestly, I think Tesla just follow some news. But if we don't get bad news, honestly, follow it upwards. Just be smart. Follow it upwards. Follow the money. Amazon, look at that 190. If we hold above that 190, look at 192, 194, 195, and then that 200 level. Amazon moves pretty slow, but earnings is going to move pretty fast, especially if it has great earnings, which I honestly believe that they will. But tariffs can affect it. But really, just think about the competition. The competition is all companies in China that sells things for cheaper, and tariffs is affecting their companies more than it's going to affect Amazon. To the downside, 187.9, 186.5, 185, and then that 180 level. Google has kind of like, we had great earnings, but we did kind of lose most of that steam and it came back down. So look at that 162, 160, and 155. I do think that we might be able to get down to those low 160s, maybe even 160 flat, and maybe even bounce around that. Or we'll just get back down to like that 157 level. But I was thinking about playing a put option, but I was kind of focusing on Tesla on Friday. And I mean, made a decent amount of money off Tesla. But with that being said, keep Google in your radar because you might be going downwards some more. To the upside, 166, 168, and 170 is going to be key. And then look at those highs of 171.5. basically 171.5, just rounded up. Bitcoin is doing pretty decent, but kind of losing some of its steam. But I think we might be able to hit that $100,000 level, maybe. Maybe I'm saying big word, maybe. But if we do start losing more steam and it starts going downwards even more, look at MSTR to the downside. It's a great play. You can make a decent amount of money to the downside. Look at 165, 160, and then 155, and then 150, basically $5 levels, because it's going to move a lot, especially if you lose a lot of money in Bitcoin. To the upside, look at that 170. If we keep it stay above that 170, 175, and 380. Sorry, I'm keep on saying one. I meant to say three, but 370, 375, and then 380 to the upside. Another one to look at is IBIT. I personally do some swing trades with this. Normally, when Bitcoin is moving a little bit more faster, like when we were at those $70,000 levels, I played a call option, a swing trade, held it for a little bit, made a decent amount of money. But IBIT basically moves with Bitcoin. It's an ETF. So I think around that $100,000 level, it might be around that $55 to that $56. So honestly, if you think that it's going to get 100K and it keeps on moving up, you can play a call option on this. And or if we start losing some steam and it's going back down, maybe even to those high 80s, you might be able to play a swing trade put option. So be very, very careful, because right now we're in that range where it can move up, but then it can also move down. So keep that in mind while trading Bitcoin. But with that being said, thanks for watching the video. Smash the like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I record videos every single day, and I'm going to be coming out with more projects. So stay tuned for that. Peace out, guys.